just you get to choose. Right? Like here's the scenario. The environment gives us something which can be perceived as negative, can be perceived as not working, can be perceived as problematic. The world's ending. But we get to choose to see it like that, or we get to choose to see it as an opportunity.
So clearly that it's my responsibility now to do that for other people. If I have information and, other people's success is my success and vice versa.
Because you know what? Like, the challenges or the roadblocks are the journey themselves.
There's no big things. It's all little things compounding on top of each other. If you could have anything in the world, just one thing, what would that be? If you could accomplish one thing, if you could be somebody, the best version of yourself, who would you be? You only get to choose one thing. Why is this so hard to answer? Well, Coach Nick caught me off guard today and asked me that question, and I had to come up with an answer, and then a conversation followed, making up this week's episode of Coach's Corner, Truth Seekers. I think you'll enjoy it. We end with a question to get you thinking about what it could be for you. Are we born into a world of limitations, or are we born into a world of limitless possibilities? Something to think about as you watch this week's episode of Truth Seekers. Welcome to Truth Seekers, another Coach's Corner today. Coach, we're getting into a good rhythm with these CCs here. How about like a crazy topic? What's the wildest thing you can think of that we can get a lift from today?
Oh, the CCs, the special CCs. What's the wildest, craziest thing? I don't know. Let's think about what is your biggest dream. What's the thing that is the most unlikely thing that you push down in your mind but never really talk about, but you know it's there? I recently read one of my favorite book last year was Will Smith. Well, Will, but his book of his life. And there's a part in it that talks about as he was being a rapper, his manager asked him once, like, what talking about acting, where do you want to go? What do you really want on this? And he said there was this moment where he didn't even know it for himself until he actually said it. But as soon as he said it, he knew it was like always there. He's like, I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. And at that time, when he was just like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, inconceivable. But he'd set the standard so high, and like when he said it, it's like I knew it in myself. I'd been telling myself for years, but inside myself, I hadn't really been telling myself. There was something inside myself telling myself, and I didn't even know for myself. So I had the question, and I allowed myself to go there and let it out. What you got?
I want to be the most prolific writer in the world. I know what it's like. I spent much of 2021 reading. I set a goal for myself to read a book a month, and it seemed monumental at the time, and now it doesn't so much. I might want to double that in 2022. And I know, looking back on it, how much of a difference those books have made in my inspiration and my knowledge and my wisdom. And I see the value of it. So to be able to deliver that to other people and to, expedite their understanding of concepts and principles and success, I think I would love to do that. Like, I envision myself with a whole bunch of passive income. I'm laying up somewhere in a tropical location in a destination with great friends and family, and I am retrieving inspiration from beautiful scenery, and I'm reading and writing. That's what I'm doing.
Oh, the most prolific writer in the world. How many books might the most prolific writer in the world have written by the time they're writing books in a tropical location with great friends and family around them?
That's a great question, because I see it as a two-pronged attack, deep and wide. That prolific being, yes, a lot, but also like there's got to be immense value. It just can't be rubbish that I'm writing here. So how many? I would say, why not? Like, how quickly could I reach the 10 book mark if I wrote 10 books? it'd probably take a couple of years to write that first one, understand the process. Who do I have to talk to? Publishers, editors. On a conservative note, if I'm really committed to it, maybe 4 years, 3 years to write the first book. Why couldn't I cut that in half? 2 books in 6 years, and then a book a year, and then a book less than a year. Why couldn't I do that? So maybe it's something like 10 books in 10 years.
I mean, how nuts is it? How quick you get to that point? We've been working a lot on with our clients, planning for the year, of course, because it's the start of the year, and there's something odd that happens between the planning and the actuality of the date flipping over to the new year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've observed from clients that I've been working with multiple years, 3, 4 years, 2, 3, 4 years, how they are much better at getting to that place, but it's still a process every time. I've got some clients, I've got just real simple Word documents of like so many notes that started really in November. And now we're only getting to the point where, okay, well, actually now this is the goal. And it's so powerful just to take all that off and then go to it again and restart and reset and have the smaller version of it, smaller and smaller and smaller. In the same way that you might take a list of all the activities you do in your job or your function or your business, and it could be like tons and tons of things, and then do the 80-20 on that list. Because it's so many, it might still be 50 things. And then do the 80-20 on the 50, and then the 80-20 on that 10, or like whatever it is, 5 or whatever it is. And then get down to the smallest common denominator of it and then get going. I want to be the most prolific writer in the world. I want to write books from a tropical location with great friends and families. Prolific is present in large numbers or quantities. Plentiful is a definition. So just lots, plenty.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be quality.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: you want to standardize before you optimize, right? And so you want to know that quantity doesn't have to, but it's a good precursor for quality as well. I think personally, my lean towards, if I'm not conscious in my action, then I think that the default is the survival, which means hold it back. Otherwise, what if it's not good enough? So I always want to lean into the quantity rather than the quality, because I can't do anything with it, but there's nothing. Yep. So I'll lean to that. So 10 books in 10 years.
Are you going to hold me to this, coach?
I don't know how committed you are.
Well, no, I'll say this: the wheels are in motion. I mentioned passive income. It's a goal for me in my business. That's something that I'm working towards. If I'm going to be a writer, I have to write a lot. I've written just about every day. Now, maybe that's a page in my journal, but sometimes it's 2 or 3 for probably, 90% of the time, every day for the past year and a half, maybe. So it's a habit it's just a habit at this point. And I'm noticing things about the writing. It's becoming more quality, well thought out. I can see things in my head before I write them. So it's not just like writing for writing's sake. And there's more value coming out. So if I continue that, there has to be compound interest on there somewhere, right?
For sure. Just are you prepared to keep going until you get it? And it could be next week, but it could be 10 years. You must have write all the books first. Who knows? All the books in that. We've talked about this a little bit before, but I find something really interesting because I do get resistance to writing. I love the words. I love language. I love articulation. But for me, it's the spoken version of it that I resonate with more. And I think we have the luxury of what we do is lots of that anyway. So I think it's been said, if you can write, like you're better form, you could think better if you write. I think that speaking it all the time on an undefined, uncharted, unstructured way allows you to do the same thing. I think I would like to record a book. I'd like just to write by speaking and have it translated. And obviously there will be a lot of editing involved.
I like that. I think that's so interesting to think about the different, different viewpoints and approaches to things, but they both work, right? That's something that you would be really good at, and I think I'd be really good at writing it.
Yeah, I just feel like I can say a lot more. I can't move my pen or my keys on the keyboard as fast as I can move my mouth.
That's so true. There's just something to me about the way, it's almost like the way an author articulates something even greater than the actual material.
Yes.
And I think, we can get some form of that in speech, but I think a lot of our speech is made up of what we've already said, or things that we're already familiar with. I think writing, you can go back over it and you can think of new ways to say things, or you think of things while you're writing it, to your point of like, you're kind of developing it as you go. And like I said earlier, I've read these books where I've been inspired by like, whoa, I can get that in video form, and I do a lot actually, but there's something else. There's another element to reading it that I maybe can't put my finger on at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. They're different mediums for sure. I think I just resonate a little bit more with I love books, but I listen to most of my books. So maybe I'm more auditory, I suppose, from that sense. And I think that part of that realization of that articulation that I think you're referring to, that art that you don't know what is going to come out, you must have experienced that from coaching as well. I remember when it first happened to me, or the first memory of it happened to me working with a client of mine a long time ago now. And we were talking about doing your best. And it just came out of my mouth without expecting it. I said, well, doing your best is time bound and situation specific. I thought, oh, that's pretty good. Like I didn't think about it before I said it, but as you're articulating, I think that's the connection. If you build up enough of the muscle, then you can get to that. Your mind just creates it, and it comes out. And so either it comes out in spoken word or it comes out in written word, and that's why journaling is so impactful. Because I mean, you could say go speak into a camera for 10 minutes every morning.
Yeah.
Rather than go write a page in your journal.
Like a video journal.
Yeah, that works way better for me.
I think I might want to try that actually.
Ah.
Think of that's kind of what this podcast is about, right? So we keep showing up and doing these coaches corners. Not that we're running out of things to say, but we're having to go deeper or to think of different ways to provide the value. That's what would happen if we did a video journal for 10 minutes every morning.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, you'd go to your values and principles that you're like, oh, this is cool. At a certain point, it has to be like, okay, like I got to say something new or come up with something more creative. Then that's the compound interest. That's the definition of it, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the power of doing this together as well, because I mean, have you ever got to a coaching call situation and run out of things to talk about? Like, meaning there's always someone else that's giving you a different perspective of what's on your mind. Because it used to happen to me, like in the early days, where I'd be like, "Oh man, what if we've run out of things to go on?" And like, it's never happened once, but that was kind of in the back of my mind, and I just realized that as soon as that, it just never happens, because there's a whole other person of stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to say things that's going to trigger something in your mind, which you're not on the train of thought on, and you've got somewhere else to go. And it's fascinating to me how you can create that. Again, that's the whole point, because we don't know what's going to come out.
Right.
Just like at the start of this Coach's Corner.
That's exactly the right example. All right. So Coach, are we getting into your biggest dream, or are we saving that for another episode?
I think we should save that.
All right. You heard it here, folks. We're coming back to this. We're going to hold Coach Nick accountable. The disappointing part is that he gets to think about it and I didn't, but that just means it's going to have to be, there's no excuse now. It's got to be grand.
Well, yeah. Well, I was going to say, maybe you got the better deal there, wherever it came out of you. But that's super intriguing to me. That's really something that is on your mind and coming to the top.
I just quick comment. Like, it's funny because I feel like Will Smith a little bit. I didn't know that about myself. And now that I said it, it's like, oh, that's kind of scary. But also, I have no doubt that I could do it. And that's something I really, really focused on. And I think it would bring me joy, and I can see myself sitting in this little villa in Italy and doing something like that. So I appreciate you asking that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy what comes out if you're willing to ask yourself.
Mm-hmm. How good can life get, Coach? That's the question. How good can life get?
Yeah. Well, so it's about the limits, of course. So if you decide that there are some, then that will be the limits that you can get to. But it also reminds me of my quote of the day about limitations, and I guess language layered into it as well. And to ask yourself those questions. If your mind pops, if someone asks you how good can life get, you're answering that with your model of the world, your lens that you see things through, and that's the answer that you'll get. And so if you can just take all the lenses out in front of the camera and start with that and all those filters, it'll be different. But if you see those filters as things that are real, this is how it's supposed to be. It's tough in the world. The weather's bad. My family doesn't support me. My team doesn't support me. No one's ever following through. Those limitations you're creating will continue to exist. And here's the quote: it says, "If you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them." It's crazy, huh?
Mm-hmm. It's so true. I think we're meant to be beings without any limitations. It's how we came into this world. And most of life is just shedding the limitations that have been bestowed upon us, either with us knowing or without us knowing.
You got it.
Maybe that's a good place to leave it, Coach.
I think so. Well, for anyone listening, go forth into that. What do you want to take out of it? What do you want to do with it? Maybe nothing, and that's okay as well.
Yeah, if you feel inspired, go write it down. Like, how good can life get, and what's the one thing that would just what was your original question? Maybe we'll end with that. We'll end with the question. What question did you ask me? Will Smith related.
What's the thing that is in you that you know that you want really bad, but you've never really allowed yourself to know it? So you certainly have never spoken it to anyone, including yourself. What's that thing?
I'm going to figure out a way to condense that a little bit and make that the title of this episode today, Coach. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining Coach's Corner on this week's episode of Truth Seekers. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching another episode of Truth Seekers. We appreciate your interaction. So please comment, like, subscribe to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want more, check out some of our links. Links to our masterclass, The Achiever's Mindset, and come join our LinkedIn group. And what do you want to see more of? Remember, we're here to share the simple secrets of successful. So help us do that. What do you want to see? What do you want to see more of? Thanks, and see you again next time.